Hey everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a 8-game Major League Baseball slate. This looks like a pretty decent slate. It doesn't look like we're going to have too much weather issues today, so that's a good news as well. Last week I know we had a ton of weather issues. Before I get started, can you guys smash that like and subscribe button? Also, thank you guys for joining and the memberships on YouTube. I really do appreciate the support. With that said, let's get into slate. Oh yeah, so make sure to check out on the weekend my NFL and college football videos. This week we did really well, so hopefully we continue that in the next week. So let's go ahead and get into this. So we'll start with our catchers here. We're going to start with, our pitchers. What am I doing? We're going to start with our pitchers today. So we have a few good pitchers on the slate. Peralta being one of the best ones. He's been really solid recently. He's averaged 26 fantasy points over the last 10 games he's pitched. And then he's had some top tier opponents through that stretch. He's been over 20 fantasy points in 8 of the last 9, and he has big time upside because he can definitely score it in the mid 30s as well. So his strikeout rate has also been really solid. He's only had one game under 9 strikeouts in the last 5, so he does probably draw some really good upside in that perspective as well. And St. Louis is kind of in a rough spot, so I think he's a great option on the slate. Verlander is also a good option today. He's been a little bit inconsistent since joining Houston, but he has a big time upside. Baltimore does tend to be a decent team, so he's contrarian play today, but he is averaging pretty good strikeouts recently, though he does have a little bit more risk than Peralta does, but he's still a capable pitcher on this particular slate. And then we'll look at Waka for San Diego. Now he's facing Colorado at San Diego, which gives him a nice boost. His range today is anywhere from 10 to 23 fantasy points. He's capable of a good game here. This game is in San Diego, so that should give him plenty of strikeout opportunities as well, and he should be able to build this into a win and get a good fantasy point potential finish as well. Though, mind you, he's had a couple tough games recently, though he has faced a pretty tough schedule lately, and his price has come down a little bit as a result. Then we'll look at Brian Wu for Seattle. He is facing Oakland, and he's had some really solid games lately. He had 25 fantasy points in his last game against Oakland, which was a few games ago for him. He's capable of a solid start here. A 15 to 25 fantasy point game is what I think will likely happen today, and he's got really good metrics for this particular situation. Moving into our catchers here, we're going to start with Will Smith for the Dodgers. Now, I do like Will Smith quite a bit, but he has been very inconsistent recently. He's really not hitting the ball particularly great, and that is a concern here, but he is capable of a home run, so if he does hit one, he'll be able to pay off here, which he's going to have a lot of capability for, but he's high risk, high reward today. Jonah Heim is also in play for Texas. Now, I really like Texas today, as I do think they're a pretty stackable team, though he has also been somewhat inconsistent lately. But he does draw some good home run metrics for this game, and so he does draw some potential. His price has also come down a little bit. Then we'll look at Campuzano for San Diego. I really thought about making him a core play at catcher because he's hitting the ball very well with a 282 average over the last 10 games. He's also had 8 fantasy points per game through that stretch. And he does draw a really nice matchup here at home, and he's got good metrics as a result. And so I do think he is a viable option, though he's not a huge home run guy. He hasn't played a ton of games, but he does draw some home run metrics today, and he also has some tendency to score some RBIs. So he hasn't played a ton, but if he does draw the start today, he'll be in play. Then we'll look at first base, and Bryce Harper will jump off the page here as a nice play. He seems like he's hitting the ball pretty well throughout the season, especially lately, and he has been a little bit inconsistent, but he does seem to be in a pretty good position to hit home runs right now, and so he is in play for that, as well as some low-end stolen base potential. But he is fairly expensive. Matt Olson also in play for Atlanta now. He's hitting about as good as anybody lately, and he's averaging 368 average over the last 10 games. He's been hitting home runs and stuff and just doing all sorts of different things. And so I do like his potential. He's also had 10 games for Philly this year where he's averaged 13 fantasy points a game, and he's had 6 home runs in those 10 games. So I look for him to try to extend that streak here and get his 53rd home run as well. So he's a great option on the slate. He's in the ball very well, and just overall really close to being a core play as well. But he's hard to put a $6,500 guy there. Uh, Nathaniel Lowe is also in play for Texas. Now, I did mention I like Texas as a stack, and he's been hitting the ball pretty well with a 275 average on the season and over the last 10 games. He's got some good upside in this matchup. He has multi-hit potential as well, and he does have some low-end home run upside on this particular slate. And then Profar, who can play also in the outfield for San Diego, is in play today as he's just very cheap at $290 $2,900 today. He doesn't have a huge amount of home run upside, but he is capable of good multi-hit games, and he has managed to score fantasy points over 10, even without multi-hits sometimes. So he's capable of a good game here, and I like his upside. He's also dirt cheap, so that gives him an advantage. Mookie Betts in play for the Dodgers here. He's hitting the ball pretty well throughout the season, though he's only had one home run over the last 10 games. He was kind of gimpy, and he did take a day off, so it's not bad to see him take a day off to try to get him back in place. But he is hitting the ball pretty well throughout the season, and he has home run potential every time he comes up to bat. Oops. Then we're going to look at Altuve here for Houston. He does draw good metrics here. He's hit the ball fairly well throughout the season. He's not played a ton of games, but he does have nice home run upside, and he's had 2 in the last 10 games. He also has some low and stolen base potential, and obviously he has good multi-hit potential as well, as he's just a really good hitter and has played pretty well throughout the season. And then Ahmad Rosario for the Dodgers has been inconsistent throughout the year, but he has been good lately for the Dodgers, and he's got 292 average over the last 10 games. He has managed to score runs and get walked some, so I do like his upside. He even has some low end stolen base potential. He's not had a ton, but he has a few occasionally, and so he does draw some potential for that as well in this matchup. Moving on third base, we'll look at Manny Machado, who is a core play for me today, as he's hitting the ball extremely well. San Diego's a great stack today. He's hit 326 over the last 10 games, including 3 home runs. He's got multi-hit game potential as well, and he's just a really good, solid option on the slate. Then we'll look at Corey Seager, Yoan Moncada for the White Sox. Now he's a kind of a contrarian play, but he's hitting the ball really well recently. He's not usually a huge home run guy, but he's had a few, 3 in the last 10 games, so he does draw some good metrics here, and he's kind of a contrarian play, but he's a nice price, and he's a pretty cheap option here. Then we'll look at Eguy Rosario for San Diego. Now he's literally near minimum price at $2,500. This will only be his 5th game, but he started the season pretty well with 3 hits in his first 4 games. He is striking out some, but he does draw some home run metrics as he hit a home run in 1 game. He also has some capability of that and some stolen base potential as well. So even though he hadn't had one at the major league level yet, he's only played a handful of games, so we'll look for him to continue to get better. Corey Seager also in play today at shortstop. He's hitting the ball very well with 317 average on the season. 3 home runs over the last 10. Over the last 10, he's had 317. His batting average is 335 over the last season. He does draw some home run metrics here. He has had 2 straight bad games, but he is capable of a big game here, and he's facing a pitcher that he should be able to dominate against, and he's got really good matchup metrics against. Xander Bogaerts also in play for San Diego here at this position. He's actually a little underpriced here, which gives him a lot of utility as he's hitting 390 over the last 10 games. He has home run and stolen base potential today. He draws really good metrics for this game, and he's had a bunch of really solid games with multi-hit games in 4 of the last 5 games, and that gives him a lot of upside here, and he's a great player on the slate. And I think San Diego is going to be one of the higher scoring teams on the slate. Then we'll look at Trevor Story for Boston. Now, he has not hit the ball very well so far this season, but he does draw home run metrics and home run potential. He is high risk, high reward, though, so he's kind of a Hail Mary play on the slate. And then CJ Abrams, also in play for Washington. He's hit the ball very inconsistent throughout the year, but he does draw that stolen base potential. He's had 40 on the season, and he is a considered option, though he's a little pricey due to the fact that he's getting so many stolen bases. Maybe the outfielders, we'll obviously look at San Diego again, and Tatis Jr. is in play. Now, he looks really solid today as he's hit the ball very well lately, especially the last couple games. He's got home run potential as well and some stolen base upside. Acuna Jr. is probably one of the best options on the slate in general. If he does draw the start today, he may take a day off, so we'll have to wait and see again because he did take off yesterday. But I do think he should get back today and have nice home run and stolen base potential. However, he's not necessarily required to play because the Braves have the postseason pretty much locked up now. So he might take more days off, so we'll just have to wait and see. Mookie Betts can also play at this position. Then we'll look at, Schwarber here for the Philly. Now he's high risk, high reward. He's usually a boom or bust play for home runs, but he is hitting a lot of home runs, so he really has some upside here as a good option here against the Braves, who have a weak pitcher today. He's, the only drawback with him is a lot of strikeouts and not a lot else if he doesn't hit a home run. Then we'll look at Alvarez for Houston, who's hitting the ball very well lately with a 375 batting average over the last 10 games, including 4 home runs. I really like his potential today, though he is fairly expensive and somewhat hard to roster as a result. He's a good contrarian option on the slate. Benintendi for Chicago White Sox has not hit the ball very well throughout the season, but he has some ups and downs. Right now, he does have some multi-hit potential as he's getting some hits in the last few games. He does need to get over 10 fantasy points if we could, but he is capable of that. But the White Sox do need to score some runs in this one for him to really be successful here. Then we'll look at Profar for San Diego. He can also play at first base. As I mentioned, I think earlier, he has some really good metrics for this game, and he can really fit well here in the outfield if you want to use a normal first baseman at first. Eloy Jimenez is also in play for the White Sox. Now, I really like his upside today. He does draw some good home run metrics, and he's hitting the ball pretty well recently, so I do think he's a viable option here. But he is high risk, high reward. A little bit of a Hail Mary play there to some degree. Then we'll look at Toskar, who was on fire for a little while, but he's cooled off since. But he does draw some home run potential today, as he got good metrics for it, and he's getting hits throughout the game in these games. He's just not scoring a ton of fantasy points, so that's kind of an annoyance. But he is capable of a good game here, and he has good metrics against Oakland on the season, where he's had 7 fantasy points per game, though he is a little pricey if he only gets 7 fantasy points. And then last but not least, Chase McCormick for Houston. He draws some decent metrics today as a contrarian option. I think Houston's a pretty decent stack today as well, but they're harder to stack because of their prices. But he does draw some good mechanics here and upside. Though he's been somewhat boom or bust recently, he does draw home run potential. So with that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. And have a nice day, guys.